Abimelech was their ruler for 3 years and everything went well. But then it all started going downhill. And I do want to note that, all the rest of the people, it says they judged Israel for X amount of years. This, they say Abimelech ruled Israel for 3 years, or ruled Shechem for 3 years. And so this is a great distinction between what the judges have been doing all of this time. He has taken on a role that God has not given him. And this word is kind of more like a prince instead of a king. And that's why, because he's not the king of all of the nation. He's just the prince of this town or this area or whatever. He's taken over in what part that he can. And so it says that he's ruled for 3 years, but then God sends a spirit of ill will between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. Now, I just want to address real quickly that some versions say a spirit, a harmful spirit or an evil spirit. And when you hear that God sends an evil spirit, it's kind of unsettling because you think of evil spirits coming from Satan. So why would an evil spirit come from God, right? That almost insinuates that God could be evil or that he uses the instruments that Satan uses. And that's not the case. What Satan does is he uses his evil to make good people do evil things. God is using this spirit of ill will to just put hostility between two evil powers. He is trying to make this curse that Jotham has pronounced on them happen. And so instead of, raining down fire or any of these things that God has the power to do to evil people to destroy them, he uses this evil spirit, this spirit of ill will or hostility to come between them so that the people of Shechem begin to dislike Abimelech and Abimelech begins to dislike the people. And so what happens is the people of Shechem set up an ambush on the mountaintops. And they're waiting on Abimelech to come through. But in the meanwhile, whoever comes through, they rob. So again, these are evil people. And so they're robbing these people as they come through. Abimelech begins to hear about it. Then they have a festival one night at the house of their Baal god. And they're in there and they're talking ugly about Abimelech. And there's a man that's kind of new to town. His name is Gaul. And he is talking with the people. He hears them talking about Abimelech. And he's like, why is that guy your leader anyway? Like, if you're going to have a leader, why wouldn't it be like the founding family of the town or something like that? Why would you select this guy that, his dad is like from a whole nother place or whatever? And he's like, if it was up to me, I'd just depose this guy. I'd get rid of him. Like, I don't know why y'all keep him around. And he's joining in and getting the people all riled up. Well, the manager of the town, basically the man that Abimelech has put in charge of the town when he's not around, Zebul, he hears this and he says, they're cooking up a scheme to overthrow Abimelech. And so he cooks up a scheme to combat that. And so he sends messengers to Abimelech and he says, hey, Gaul and the people of the town are planning to, depose you. And so here's what I think you need to do before they do that. Like, go on the offense instead of waiting on this. He says, come into the fields, lay in wait in the fields, and then early in the morning, rush the gates of the town. And so Abimelech does this. Now, Gaul and Zebul happen to be at the gates of the town early that morning whenever they rush the town. And Gaul is like, oh no, someone is coming to, attack us. There's an army coming after us. And Zebul's like, what are you talking about? Those are just shadows in the mountains or whatever. And he's like, no, like, don't you see over there by the diviner tree, like the place where the sorcerer practices her sorcery or whatever? Don't you see all those people? And so then Zebul's like, yeah, actually it's Abimelech and his army, and they're coming after you. So now are you going to make good on your threats that I heard you making last night? Are you actually able to do the things that you said, or were you just making a big show? out of it last night. And so Gaul had no option but to, go out and fight Abimelech. And he brought the people of the town, and it says many of them were wounded, and then Gaul fled back to the town. And when he got back there, Zebul said, "You're done. Like, I'm banishing you from this town. I don't want anything else to do with you. You can't be here anymore." And so he left, and now the rest of the people of Shechem are left with this mess with Abimelech. And it says, the next morning, the men went out in the field. And so Abimelech separated his people into 3 companies. 2 of the companies stayed there in the field and fought and killed all of the men that came out against them. And Abimelech and his company went into the town. And it says they fought against the people all day, finally defeated them and captured the town. And it says they leveled the town completely, and then he sowed the ground with salt. And if you do this, nothing will grow. And so it will have to wait until, it rains enough to dilute all of the salt for anything to grow. So it'll be many, many years before anything is able to be grown in that town again. And so this is just his way of completely demolishing the town, right? It's not just tearing down the buildings and killing the people. He's like, nothing is left here and nothing can grow here for years and years. But after he's done this, he finds out all of the leaders have been in the Tower of Shechem. And when the leaders find out that he's done this to the town, they leave the Tower of Shechem and they go into the fortress of their God. They've made a fortress and named it for their God. And they go into that fortress. Well, when Abimelech finds out that that's what they're doing, he and his men go cut down a bunch of brush and lay it up against the fortress and set it on fire. And it says he killed 1,000 men there, men and women. And then he goes and camps in a nearby city, ends up capturing that city. The people from that city also take refuge in a tower of their God in that town. And he goes to set that tower on fire also, but all of the people have rushed to the roof, and unbeknownst to him, a woman takes a millstone and drops it from the roof of this tower onto his head and crushes his skull. But he doesn't die quite yet. But he's ashamed because this woman is the one who has, basically killed him. He's almost dead. And so he says to his armor bearer, "Hey, get your sword and kill me yourself so that nobody can say that I died by the hand of a woman, because that would be disgraceful." And so his armor bearer does. His armor bearer kills him so that he can't be said that he got killed by a woman, except for thousands of years later, we're still saying that Abimelech got killed by a woman. So tough for him, right? And so after the disgraceful thing that he did by killing his brothers, he has now died in disgrace. He lived his life for glory and he died in disgrace, right? And the people have also all died because they empowered him. And so now we've got all of them exactly what Jotham said. They've been killed by fire, mutual destruction. You thought you wanted this man to be your king, but turns out he gave you shade for 3 years, and now the fire has come out and devoured you, right? Because you picked the wrong bush. Because this tree can only give you shade for so long, and then the sun comes and it scorches you to death. And so he says, you took shade in the wrong man, and now the fire has come out to kill you. And so it just makes you think about all of these people continuously going and taking shelter in the house of this foreign god, and the people placing their faith and trust in these gods and in this man when none of these things were supposed to be done in the first place, right? They were never supposed to take a king or betray their God with other gods, and yet they've done both of these things. And so they empowered someone that never should have been empowered in the first place, and now everybody's dead.